Hey guys, Philip Good here. I am a relationship coach and an unconditional love coach, and also an abuse recovery specialist. This video is chapter 15 of my book, Ignited by the Bottle, Delivered by the Fist. And the title of this chapter is A Little Angel Showed Us True Wealth. A little bit of recap on the previous video in chapter 14. We got to the stage where my parents, who I had borrowed $15,000 from in order to get into the share milking or share farming contract and purchase cows and machinery. Year two of our contract, my dad said that he wanted the money back, simply to put that back into his bank account, doing nothing with it, with no purpose other than leave it in the bank, leave it in his bank account, even though we would have paid, we did pay interest on the money, and we would have paid a lot more than bank interest, of course. Anyway, I spoke to our farm advisor, George, and he requested a meeting with my parents. So my parents duly came down to the farm and had a meeting with George, Ollie and I, and my parents. And so the sum total of that was my parents said at the meeting that they wanted their money back. And George said, well, I'll give you a bit of an idea of how great a farmer Phil and Eileen actually are. So he said the performance that Phil did last season, that's the first season on this 3-year contract on the farm. He said the performance was so great, I ranked that performance in the top 3 performances out of 1,500 suppliers to Rangitaki Plains Dairy Company, our milk supply company, the company we supplied milk to. So that's what he said to my parents, and my parents nodded and said, okay, yeah, well, that's great. And they said, okay, well, we'll think about that, and we'll get back to Phil as to our decision, whether we decide to leave the money in for another year or not, and so on. We'll let you know. So that was fine. So the meeting ended. My parents left, and George left, and so on. My father eventually got back to me and said, "No, Mum and I have decided we want our $15,000 back." So on the strength of that, I realized, my sums did my budget and cash flow and so on, realized that would have broken the bank a bit, and so we'd be in a bit of strife with the bank, being, our debt to our debt ratio would have been too high. So anyway, I said to George, mentioned this to George, and he said, "Okay, just leave it with me a day or two, and I'll have a talk to the Murray Trust, who actually owned the farm, and they were actually relations of George." So anyway, he came back to me and said, the Murray Trust is prepared to finance you themselves to enable you to stay on and finish your contract and hopefully extend your contract. And so I talked about that, and then I got back to George and said, look, we've decided that if my father and mother weren't prepared to back us based on the performance that I'd done in the first season in the top 3 out of 1,500 suppliers, then no, we won't accept the offer from the Murray Trust to stay on. But thank you very much. And so what in effect was, what I did was I let my pride get in the way. The Murray Trust were prepared to back Ollie and I financially. My parents weren't, in spite of the fact that I was better than the top 1% of performances in the dairy company. So anyway, so we decided to leave. So that was the decision was made. So we would leave the farm. But over that 2-year period we were on the farm, in the very first year, we met our friends. We met our friends, Mike and Gail. They contract milked just down the road from where we were on our farm on our 3-year contract, share farming. And we met their 2 daughters, Anushka and Chantelle. Soon after we arrived, Mike and Gail came to us and said that their little daughter, Chantelle, who was only 4.5, had contracted cancer. And they said to Mike and Gail, it's likely to be terminal cancer. They discovered a growth in Chantelle's groin, sort of in the groin slash pelvis, more and more pelvis actually. So it eventually grew to the size of an apple or a pear. She was Chantelle, 4.5. She was this little angel of a girl. She had blonde hair. It was in beautiful blonde ringlets, blue eyes. She was the most beautiful, angelic little girl you could ever imagine. And she always had the biggest smile on her face. Such a happy, joyful, loving smile. And so, of course, Mike and Gail, the parents, they were distraught. They were beside themselves. They didn't know what to do. They tried, apart from conventional medication, and Chantelle went through chemotherapy. All that beautiful blonde hair and golden ringlets, you lost all that. So Mike and Gail tried all sorts of alternative medicine, alternative treatments and therapy. They tried anything and everything they heard of or could find. They tried it. Nothing worked. Chantelle lost a lot of weight through chemo, not only a lot of hair, but she lost of weight. She almost got down to being almost like a skeleton. Became wheelchair bound. And we at the time had three children, and Eileen was pregnant with our 4th. We'd look at our 3 children, all sort of healthy and well and all joyful and playing, and here's Mike and Gail with 2 children and potentially about to lose one of their 2 girls. Our problem was we were grappling with the loss of money from my brother-in-law. Loss of money, and then his mother sort of like disowning her and so on. So we're grappling with all that, the loss of money. Oh my God, we got to get our money back. We had court cases going, paying lawyers to try and get our money back, to no avail. We had a tax bill that came up from our previous share milking operation that had to be paid. We didn't have money to pay that. So we're under a lot of financial stress. We're involved in the share milking operation. And then along came Mike and Gail with their issue, which made our financial issues and the loss of our money by Larry just pale into significance. And it was just insignificant in the context of what Mike and Gail, our friends, were going through with their daughter. So, of course, she was given all sorts of painkillers, for the pain. And little Chantelle, soon after she got it, she got the cancer. She said to her parents one morning, she said the previous night, Jesus had come to her in a dream, and he said he would take away all her pain, so she wouldn't have any pain. And the next day she went and told her parents, I saw Jesus. And of course, Mike and Gail, they weren't religious at all, right? So, but Chantelle had said to her parents, I had Jesus spoke to me. And he said he'd take away all my pain. So all that pain medication, after the chemo, you don't have to give it to me, mummy and daddy. I haven't got any pain at all. Jesus has taken it all away. So Mike and Gail, of course, were gobsmacked about this, and they let us know as well. And then another night, a bit later on, by this time, Chantelle had gone through a full course of chemotherapy. Like I said before, he had fallen out. She was being wheeled around in a wheelchair. And she said to her mum and dad, Jesus came to me again last night or the previous night during my sleep. And I said to him, I have 2 wishes. I want to ask you if I can have these 2 wishes, please, Jesus. So he said, Jesus said to her, so he said, what are your wishes, Chantelle? She says, one is I want to go to school with my friends and eat a cut lunch with my friends. You said, okay, yeah, you're right. And what's your second wish? And she said, my second wish is to get up out of my wheelchair and walk across Auntie Eileen, that's my wife Eileen, walk across Auntie Eileen's kitchen and dining room from one corner of it to the other into Auntie Eileen's arms. And when she said that to her parents, during the day of this meeting with Jesus, they said, "Oh no, that's impossible. You couldn't possibly do that. I mean, you can't even you can't even walk." So that night she asked Jesus, "Those are my 2 wishes. Will you grant them to me?" And he said, "Yes, I will, Chantelle." So she duly went to school, the local primary school, and she had lunch with her friends. Their parents pushed her in a wheelchair to be able to do that. Anyway, a couple of days later, she came up to our place where we were farming, and she said, "Jesus said he granted my wish, Auntie Eileen." And Eileen said, "Well, what's your wish, Chantelle?" She says, "To get out of my wheelchair and to walk across from one corner of your kitchen and dining room, which was a big kitchen, big dining room, get out of my wheelchair and walk across to you." And Eileen said, "Is that right?" And Jesus said, "Yes, he'd grant that wish." So anyway, she came up the wheelchair and she stood up. The parents looked at her standing up and said, "Oh my God, you're not supposed to be able to do this. How's she doing that?" Anyway, she took one little step at a time and she shuffled her way ever so slowly from one corner of that big room to the other one, to Eileen's open arms. She made it all that way. It was miraculous. It was incredible. So all this was going on with Mike and Gail and Chantelle and her sister Anushka while we were battling with our problem about lack of money and lack of finance and money being stolen, all the rest of it, financial pressures. My parents not prepared to finance Eileen and I as well to continue our share farming contract. And Eileen and I just looked at each other and looked at our children, and we were talking after on our own. We were talking about Mike and Gail and what they were going through. And I said, we realized that what we were going through with loss of money was nothing compared to what Mike and Gail were going through. If they'd have had $1 billion, $1 trillion And if it had cost $1 trillion to heal their daughter, they would have spent every dollar of $1 trillion to save their daughter's life. Hand on heart, 100%. And we would have done the same. When we thought of that, we thought that money is not your true wealth. Love is the true wealth. Family love, unconditional love is the only true wealth there is. So that was a great lesson for us to learn. We were hurting. We thought we were hurting, and we were from the loss of money. But when we looked at Mike and Gail, they'd come up to our farm and we wondered, what can we say? Because nothing we can say will make any difference. All we could do is wrap our arms around Mike and Gail and give them a hug. Give them a hug. That's all we could do. And they just broke down in tears to us. They didn't know how they could cope, how they could get through it. And it was so tough for them and tough to Anushka, the sister, as well. Chantelle eventually passed away when she was 5.5, 1 year after you first met them. She was only 5.5 when she passed away. But the wisdom in that little girl's eyes, her face, her words were almost like she not only lived lifetimes, but she had this almost angelic divinity about her. She knew things. She had that conversation with Jesus. She knew he was real. She spoke to him. She didn't have any fears at all. She knew she was going to die. So that was an extraordinary moment for us, an important moment that taught us about what real wealth, what true wealth actually is. As you can imagine, the strife and trauma we're going through from our brother-in-law stealing our money, the impact that it had on our relationship. Not that, because I never ever blamed Eileen. She was only a sister of the brother that did that to us. He did it to his own mother and his dead father as well. But I never once blamed Eileen because, like I said in the previous video, she had a heart of gold. She wouldn't do a bad thing to anyone. She was such a beautiful, beautiful, kind, gentle, loving person. But Eileen felt to blame because it was her brother. And she would say, if you hadn't met and married me, you would never have met Larry. And he wouldn't have done what he did to us and to you. And I said, I didn't marry Larry. I married you because you had a heart, the greatest heart of gold. You're a person who had the most unconditional love in the heart I've ever known in my life. And that's true to this day. Larry was only part of he was one of the outlaws in the equation. So he had no relevance on the quality of our relationship at all, our marriage. Our little family unit, in spite of the challenges we'd faced, was still intact. Because from my point of view, I definitely wasn't about to give up on true unconditional love, the beautiful family we had. Even though we'd lost money, we had everything we needed. Our family, our beautiful, healthy children, each other. We had all the unconditional love we ever wanted or needed. That was our true wealth. And that was the realization we had. All challenges in your life, particularly when you're in a relationship, you're married, you're with a partner, whatever, they're all a test. Everything and all challenges in life are a test. They're a test of you never giving up. Are you going to give up? Of your resilience, of your forgiveness, gratitude. Everything is a test. Did we pass the test? I believe so. We all face challenges in our life. Lose money, lose this. But it doesn't mean to say you lose your relationship. If your relationship with your spouse is built on a solid, concrete, loving foundation, doesn't matter what happens in your life, it's not going to breach that foundation that you've created. The beautiful, loving bond that you have with your spouse. If your relationship is founded on that, then nothing will ever break down the relationship. And so it was with Arlie and I. Hope you've gained something from this video, guys. I love you very much, and I wish blessings and love and light to you guys. My wish is that the love you have for your relationship is exactly the love that we've always had for our relationship. Total unconditional love, because unconditional love is all there is. End of story. I'll leave you there, guys, and I'll see you on the next chapter. Love you. And please, if you want to get in contact with any relationship issues or you want some help, please go to our website, philipgood.com. That's Philip with one L, PhilipGood.com. And there's an ebook there that you're able to download, free downloadable ebook. Okay? Okay then. Bye for now. Love you guys. Bye now.